Hell or High Water fue una de mis películas preferidas del 2016 y pude conversar con su director de fotografía, con Giles Nuttgens, sobre cómo fue construir la intimidad para darle esa magia que tiene esta película dirigida por David Mackenzie. Todo está, creo yo, en la relación que tienen tanto los actores entre sí como, por lo visto, los actores con cada uno de los integrantes de este cuerpo encargado de dirigir esta película llamada Hell or High Water.
We now return to Mira Akien and Contre with our latest interview.
David Mackenzie is very, very distinct about the image having a narrative element. David's thing really is sort of understanding that the environment is what dictates the actions, which is the case obviously in the narrative there. And so he wants to describe that visually. And everybody else said great films come out of pain, and people, in the industry, they sort of believe that, if it's at the most terrible shoot in there, you get some amazing film. That hasn't been my experience in life. My experience is that when you have a good relationship between a director and actors, and the extension of that is, the actors and the core technical crew, and when that's very relaxed, that gives people that artistic freedom to actually do something and involve themselves. And the big thing about Hell or High Water was that right at the beginning, Dave Mackenzie, myself, Ben Foster and Chris Pine spent a day together. They were going through their process of bonding as brothers, but they had worked together before in that capacity, so they knew each other, but they obviously were trying to find their characters. And we went out to the ranch, which was, I can't remember, a couple of hours from Albuquerque. And we went out to the ranch and we just literally all got into the same car, and then we all fell out the same car, and everybody just went and did their thing around the ranch, just wandered. I think Ben picked up a steer's head skull or something like that. And, so they sort of messed around, just looked around. And that day was amazing in terms of feeling comfortable with each other. I felt right from the beginning that Chris is very, very communicative. Chris is very open. He's very open. Ben is a much more complex person. So you sort of, and then they're both great actors. But having set that up in terms of the four of us in that space, really helped us to get going on the film.
Get the money to the bank on Thursday.
And then you are free and clear.
We only had Chris for 11 days.
Yeah.
So in the first 4 days, we had to rob 4 banks and move from one end of New Mexico to the other. So we had a massive amount of, it was a very intense period with Chris. And that the fact that we'd had those moments, because we didn't really have many other moments to rehearse or anything like that, but just that moment of, it wasn't really bonding, it's just to feel comfortable in the same vehicle for a while, and in the same, and our reactions to listen to each other about what they felt about being out in the ranch, and because obviously they were trying to find their characters out there. That was something I think that made all of the difference in the film, because it also set up the dynamic between David's quite strong in how he is and what he says and what he wants. And so the fact that we set off in a good relationship with them, and also, a lot of bonding between them. David's a bit older than them, but still, they could relate very easily. That sort of set it off. And I still feel that if that hadn't been with that connection, and also if the connection between David and myself hadn't been there, because David and I have had a long, once again, 20 years together. But in a push and pull relationship. Sometimes he hates me, sometimes. But Hell or High Water for the two of us was the culmination of all of that work that we did together, that we started off with Young Adam in about 2000. Once we're all working together and we're all understanding each other and we're all aiming for the same thing, then it gets much freer.
You got a gun on you, old man?
You damn right I got a gun on me. Y'all gonna steal my gun too?
We ain't steal from you, we're stealing from the bank.
Woo! What we did was we thought that if we introduce as few barriers as possible, for example, I operate, so that I've got a relation directly with the actors. David doesn't use a script supervisor on the set. So therefore that person stays and logs all of the information in the editing room. That's what happened on Hell or High Water. It doesn't happen in every shoot because it's a union requirement. But what that meant is that there's nobody else between David and the actors. So everything has to go through him, including the technicalities of it. And so David and I do continuity. So we've got other jobs to do, so we may not be perfect, and I'm sure people will point out that we're not perfect. But what that does is you accept that maybe that's not as important as that direct relationship with the actors. And so when you see that it's going to work, and Jeff Bridges' first day was a very interesting dynamic, because it was hard to know whether it was going to work, because Jeff was 67, David's fairly hardcore, keep going. And Jeff takes his time, but it worked out well. They after a day, they found their balance because Jeff respected what David was doing. And obviously David respects Jeff Bridges, as we all do as an actor. So as long as you have enough respect, then it works really well.
Hear about these bank robberies? You may get to have some fun before they send you off to the rocking chair yet. I may have one hunt left in me.
Definitely, Hell or High Water was extremely special in the relationships between us all, and our relationship with the fact that it wasn't that hot, actually. I think it was 40 degrees centigrade.
Yeah.
So I think out in the desert it was 40. It wasn't like being, when we did Star Wars, it was low 50s. So it was hot but not unpleasant. But the heat therefore gave a sense of urgency to the whole thing, and you can't, even as an actor, it's difficult not to let that affect your performance. And I think that's the thing that we felt in Hell or High Water.
These boys know exactly what they're doing. They're trying to raise a certain amount, that's my guess. Let's go! Drive!
By the time we got up to using the Russian arm for some of the stuff on the roads, we were on roads with police outriders about a couple of kilometers ahead and a couple of kilometers behind us, and they'd slow up the traffic, and then we were out on the open roads, but we were completely free. And the guys were doing 120, 130 kilometers an hour. So because they were effectively closed roads, but because we had actors that were prepared to do it, because we had amazing people on the Russian arm, and because we were all a bit gung-ho, you could do that sort of thing. And I think that's what gave Hell or High Water a really, as well as it's an amazing script. Taylor Sheridan's script is an amazing script. Taylor writes about the environment, so that was our job to bring that in there. But partly because it was shot in a slightly rough way. A lot of the time, sometimes we left the crew behind a bit. We would literally put the camera in the back of a vehicle and then follow and drive for 50 miles. And then, and that would be the end of the day. We would just move to the next place, but we would carry on shooting until we get up to the next place.
You want a little advice? Go see your boys tomorrow.
You talk like we ain't gonna get away with this.
I've never met nobody got away with anything, ever.